So, today's video, we are carving a kangaroo. This is the biggest wood carving I've done so far. It uses the entirety of a 2x2 block. All other sculptures that used my 2x2 blocks, I'd used a portion of them only, but this one used a complete one, and it took me 3 sessions. I carve during streams every Saturday, and it took me 3 weeks to make this one. So the process began with a very rough pass of carving the back and part of the front of the kangaroo. Specifically, during the first stream, I only managed to get the head and a portion of the torso roughly done before the stream ended. So this is what we're watching right now. I tried various things to help me carve this portion. 2x2 blocks are fairly rough, at least the ones I have. So here I made a series of lines with one of my knives, which helped soften the wood slightly, or it made it easier to rip apart with the other knives. But I didn't end up using this technique much because yes, it felt like it changed something, but not enough. And I found this next technique before that, where by making tiny lines more controlled and then pushing against them, I was able to remove very easily corners. It couldn't be used for the whole surface because it needed this kind of movement needs a corner to start from, but it still saved quite a bit of time in making the portion I removed as straight as possible. To try to help me draw straight lines, you saw me there just make one notch on the line that I'd drawn on both sides and then connect those 2 notches. It's better than freehanding, and I didn't have my square nearby, so that's what I chose to do. The subject of today, the fact that it is a kangaroo that I'm carving, was chosen by process of asking my coworkers if they had any ideas, and one of them suggested a kangaroo. Apparently, it's because there is a race or something that's going to happen in Australia this year or next season or something like that. I'm not really aware of the exact reasoning, but that's what I have. I didn't have really much inspiration for what to do next. Last time but when it was time for me to choose the subject for that week, so I was open to suggestions from my colleagues. One thing I'll mention now also is that the footage, is sped up 4 times. Normally, I limited it. I try to only do twice as fast because I thought it would be too, I don't know, difficult to follow, perhaps. But it seemed to me that it would work decently well here, and it also limited the length of the video because otherwise it would have been 1 hour long because it's made from 3 sessions. So, and well, I it would have felt ridiculous to me. I don't have 1 hour's worth of commentary. For doing the drawing on the sides, I'd use a template I'd cut from paper, and here I'm drawing the front face while thinking about. But I use the sides as reference and a bit of how I know the shape will be. I also had a picture open when I was doing that. So here the goal was to get fairly close to where the final head shape would be. I didn't want to go too close because it would have then become a problem of making a surface that is dangerous to hit, to break when I'm so soon in the process. So I tried to go very systematically with this project. I tried to go step by step and have a plan of attack. And it felt easier to go from the head down because the head is the most fine and delicate detail on a kangaroo, more or less. So starting by doing the head, I could be confident that I had the correct size, and it would help scale the rest of the carving compared to the head. I did deviate a bit from that plan because I'll say it right now, even though it's later that we see it. But because of the size of the 2x2 block, my hand couldn't really wrap around it fully. The hand that holds the wood while I'm carving, and the corners of it did hurt my fingers quite. Not, it didn't hurt, but my hand got tired faster than I would have expected. So at some point during the second stream, I changed gears and I stopped focusing on doing the initial plan of going from the head down and just do one pass of all corners of the body to go not as close as possible, but closer to the edge. That way, my hand was able to have a proper grip on the project, which helped a lot for stamina. Here, the second side of the head, I was able to do a fairly good portion of the carving with this slicing method. I do just a tiny slice, the thinnest slice I can manage, and then just cut the other, just separate it from the main portion of the body with one movement almost. I didn't think of that exact method when I started doing the other side, and because of that it had too much curves to it and it wasn't really salvageable using that technique. I couldn't get a good starting cut, I'll say, is how I'll describe it. But this was for that specific portion of the project, it was really a useful method. Although I think it was a bit of a question of the angle of the knife. I couldn't get a good even though the piece itself is symmetrical, the angle of work on the piece isn't, and that has limited also my ability to do the same technique on both sides every time like I would have liked. And here I'm drawing the sides of the head, basing myself on the template I'd made and what remained of the sides of the drawing. And the intent here was to complete the initial shaping of the head from the backside. I ended up leaving a lot of that for later because I thought it was better to start working on the shoulder right now so that I had an idea of where the neck would be a lot better. So that's what I'm working here. At that point, I was still following the plan of doing the whole carving from the head down. I'd expanded it to all the way to the shoulder and almost a fairly large portion of the torso now that I look at it in retrospect. But I'd still not touched the bottommost part of the project, which I now think was probably a mistake, but it's really hard to tell with those things. My opinion kind of changes often on that. And here I'm really working on the underside of the head. And in fact, I think this is the second stream. I say that because there was a change of lighting. I don't know if you noticed. When I set up the stream, the light is... When I close my computer, the light is also shut up fully and forgets what settings I had it at. So whenever I set up a stream or recording, the lighting setting is slightly different every time, which not ideal. I should probably note down what works best and try to stick with it, but I have yet to do that, if I ever do. So here I'm working on the underside of the head. I wanted to have the contour of the muzzle figured out. And that's here that I noticed that I had the idea to remove all the corners as much as I could. So to do that, I started by marking the tail, which, as far as I can tell from looking at pictures, kangaroos don't tend to have their tail straight up if they can. But for the purposes of my carving, because of the material I had and what realistically could be done, I chose to have it pointing straight up. I don't know if it's possible for a kangaroo to do that, but that's the compromise I had to do with what I had. And here, when I was doing the corners, there was a very fun thing that I could do at the beginning, where I would carve. I would do layered cuts, just a bunch of cuts on the corner, always a bit further away, like this, and then just make a deep cut on the reverse direction, which would remove all of the layers basically at once. It felt good to do this specific movement. And once I started doing this removal of the corner, I quickly noticed that the hand that held the block felt a lot more secure and without me having to put a lot more effort into it. So it was definitely worth it to do it on this at this point to start doing the corners. I don't know if I should have started with doing a first pass from the bottom up, but I think the problem I had would have been similar, because one of the reason I could remove wood so carelessly, I'll say, from the behind portion of the carving is because of the fact that I'd already done the head and knew where it ended and where the back was, and a fairly good idea where the neck would be. So again, really hard to tell for these things. And when I was doing this portion of the back, I think I made a bit of a mistake. I didn't give enough curve to the back of the sculpture. It's kind of just one half circle, or not half circle, but circle portion, and it doesn't really have enough volume, and kangaroos aren't that flat. They have more varied curves. I end up noticing, and I think I've decently corrected for that mistake, but it's something I could have spotted earlier, but well, I didn't, and we can't travel in time. One of the tricky element of this part of the portion was saving enough room for the legs, for the feet, for the arms, even though I was carving a very large portion of the wood away in a fairly careless fashion. It was a hard balance to strike. I think I did it fairly well, but you'll be the judge of that. So here we see the problem of doing it with 4 times speed. The movement is way too fast at times, but I won't change it for this case. It's, as far as I'm concerned, it's set in stone. I have relatively little time to edit, so I recorded the voiceover in one part, and I do check the recording for if the speed is that I've time-lapsed it at is fine, but I do more of a spot check. I don't look at the entirety of the video before adjusting the speed, because that would be way too long, and I could probably do a first pass where I spot portions that are too fast and edit them for them specifically to be slightly slower or something like that, but something to think about for the future. But it would make the process of editing much more complex for me by a fairly high margin, so I don't really want to do it this way. There's nothing egregious, I think, but it's not ideal at times. So here I'm working on the legs. I've done a very large pass on the entirety of the front of the legs, because having left a bit more thickness on the base for the feet, there really wasn't any worry that I'd go too far, that I'd remove too much wood, and that there could be a problem on that. So, but the other side, well, there was a tail to worry about, and I didn't want to risk breaking the tail. It's as simple as that. Once I started doing the back, and every time I go back and do a portion of the back, the tail becomes more and more of a worry every time I go back, because it gets more and more fragile and more worrisome. Also, one thing I'll mention here is that you may have noticed that I've not shown the points where I was drawing additions. Like I didn't show where I drew the arms on that newly carved portion. I didn't show. I don't show all of the drawing on this specific carving because there was a lot of waffling about, and as usual, and given that the video already was going to be pretty long footage wise, pretty dense footage wise, I didn't feel like it was worth it to show the drawing when my carving process has me go right up to the lines and often trace over the lines with one of my knives. So I simply didn't show that in editing. So here I'm doing a pass wherever the arms and the legs aren't there. That way there is that way the legs and the arms are higher than the body. They have more room. And here I'm trying to work to make the back, all of the back carved away. I didn't finish it this time. I do a lot of passes on the back at different stages of the project. It took a long time to get satisfied with it and to be confident that I didn't go too far with it and that I didn't risk going too far with it. So I did it in many stages. And with that, we're now on the third and final streams, time lapse. And that means that as far as I was concerned, all the rough shaping was done, and I was now at trying to do details. I was trying to be more fine and delicate with what I was doing most of the way through, and trying to preserve, to do a truly good job at being more close to what a kangaroo really is. I ended up doing one of the mistakes I did. One of the things I have a bit of problem with in this project is that the kangaroo ended up a lot more chubby than I anticipated. This is something that has happened with every single one of my projects so far, so I really shouldn't be surprised now, but every time I have trouble when doing the plan for a wood carving to think about how thin I'll be able to make this or that element. At least when I do a full carving like this, it was easier when I was doing the snake or something when it's on a cylinder. For some reason, I have a much easier time doing it that way. But here, that wasn't the case, and whenever I do it this way, the it always ends up bigger and, let's just say it that way, fatter than I intended it to be. I always overestimate how much material I'll be able to comfortably remove. Here you see me trying to refine back so that the upper portion of the back is thinner and that the inferior portion of the back is thicker. I wanted that to be a bit more of a butt for the tail to attach to. There's really no other way to say it. And in doing this process, the tail for the first time started to be separate from the back. Because for the back to be fully shaped, the tail had to be separated at some point, and I needed to do it right then because otherwise the surface wouldn't be smooth, because the back wouldn't be as smooth. I thought, at least, uh, because I'd have both portions of the back would have been done in different slices. And it's also here that I separated the body of the kangaroo from its base, with the exception of the legs, of course. It still needs to stand. So I did the same thing I did with the devil. I used one of my chisels, rounded chisels, to more or less as a drill by twisting it around to remove chips deep inside the block, and did that until I'd pierced all the way through. And then I worked with one of my straighter chisels to make the edges better looking. It was in truth, it was a process where I switch chisels often, depending on where I was at what step I was. But here is really the main plunge where I made sure to go all the way through with the chisel. Everything before that was more surface preparation. And now that it's completed, the first plunge, I start doing more minor plunge to widen the hole and use the different knives for better surface finish. This method of piercing through makes a very, very terrible surface finish. Uh, that's just because with the circular chisel, it leaves gouges, and the ridges between the gouges are rough and splintery. So another chisel has to be used then to smooth those ridges out. It's a whole process that I feel like I've started getting the hang of. It felt less hard than the previous times I tried this type of technique. So, but also because of the way it was structured between three streams, I was not. This stage was at the beginning of a session, when normally this is, well, the last time I did it, it was in the end of a session, so it was much harder at that time because I was more tired. So that might very well be a factor also. You may have noticed that I skipped a decent chunk of this portion. Uh, because of how I was angling the wood to see it, uh, it was for me. I was seeing it well when I was carving, but the camera didn't really see it that much. The angle was bad, so it was not worth it in my eyes to add it in the video. So here I'm working on making sure that there's a bump where the pouch is, in the shape of a just a just a pocket. Really, I didn't really bother trying to make. In the pictures I was seeing, I didn't really notice the pouch, which in my head, the pouch of a kangaroo is basically the most critical portion. When I think animals with pouch, I think the kangaroo. There are others, but I don't know them by heart, or at least not at the top of my head. So it was important for me to make it visible. And then it's on with the head, making the details. So I started trying to round off the no. Here I'm trying to make the profile of the head as I'd drawn it, and split and remove the material between the ears, so that the ears are defined. To do that, I used a chisel, because whenever I try to make this kind of details, if I do it with a knife, in the past at least, I'd always break what I was trying to do. And with a chisel, I have a much better track record. So that's why I chose my straight chisel for that. This is still the rough version of the ears. A bit later, they're sharpened. But then I start trying to round the mouth portion and the so that it is more of a cylinder, unless because till then it was more cubic in nature, and I wanted to be more natural and curved. So that's what I did here. Then I sharpened the ears quite a bit. It's basically going to be their final shape. I think I touch them up a bit later, but and here I smoothed the back of the head with the body, because I felt it was too the neck was way too pronounced. And then I just shaved a portion of the front of the face to shape the nose, and dug a channel to make the mouth with a shape similar to that of a cat's. And then I started trying to make the eyes. My first shot at it, I'd missed completely, so I retried them. I did 2 tries for the eyes. I splintered a lot. The first eye was kind of, there was a lot of tear out and misshapen things, so I scrapped it and started again. The eyes, which was not a big deal. I didn't dug them deep yet. So, and then it's sharpening the tail and doing its final shape. And here, one of the last thing I did with this sculpture is I finished the shape of the legs. I basically just removed the layer so that it was separate from and distinct from the base, and then rounded them off. After that, the only details that are left are making claws for the hands and for the feet. I pretty sure I didn't do the correct type of claws and fingers for this, but the pictures I could find easily at first Googling, which is the method I use for reference, didn't really have a good look at those specific details. So I more or less improvised with what felt right, which very well might not be right. So sorry to anybody who cares. And with that, I'll be saying thank you for watching and goodbye. Feel free to come by anytime you want.